Welcome back to the Brothers War EDH. My name is Ryan, and today, unfortunately, Chris has summoning sickness, and he can't be able to make it today. But you know what? Your boys got haste, and I'm here. Today, we're going to be bringing y'all our top 10 plus a shout-outs, plus a land, because there's only one land that we're going to bring up in this set. I know that there's the pain lands that got printed in this set, but in this specific one, we're talking about ones that are not reprinted. So top 10 colorless cards plus a shout out plus a land in the Brothers War set. So let's talk about the only land from the Brothers War set that we thought was worth bringing up. Demolition Field. You tap it for a colorless, you pay 2 and tap it, sacrifice Demolition Field, destroy target non-basic land and opponent controls. That land's controller may search their library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. You may search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. So when I first saw this card, it kind of reminded me of Field of Ruin. And a funny story, I played that card in EDH one time, and this was back when I was like fresh into it, and I was like, or I was fresh coming back into playing more EDH, and I was like, this card is so bad for this format because you're given every other player land by just destroying one non-basic land from somebody else. And I was like, this is so bad. But what's interesting about this one is that the land's controller searches. This is the only land that we have to bring up. And yeah, sometimes I'm dumb and I play Field of Ruin. Coming into our shout outs for the colorless cards, we are going to bring up the Stasis Coffin. It is a legendary artifact for 3 mana, pay 2. Tap it, exile it. You gain protection from everything until the end of turn. I think something to note about this is that it's you and not like you and permanents you control. So this is pretty good against like if someone's gonna target you with like a Banefire or something crazy like that. You can do this in response to it. It's I think a lot of people wanted to compare this to something like maybe like a colorless Teferi's protection, but I think that it would be different if it was you and permanents you control. But to my knowledge, you just means like you as the player, not like your permanent. So that's going to be our shout outs for this episode. Coming in at number 10 on our list, it is the Stone Brain, 2 mana legendary artifact. Pay 2, tap it, exile the Stone Brain, choose a card name, search target opponent's graveyard, hand, and library for up to 4 cards with that name, and exile them. That player shuffles, then draws a card for each card exiled from their hand this way, activate only as a sorcery. So, there's some, those cards that like, you like search, you can like search their library for something. There was the Praetor's Grasp, I believe. If somebody's whole deck is dedicated to like one combo or like one card, this just gets rid of that card. Effects like these are like not like crazy good, but this is probably like not as good as like a Praetor's Grasp, because I think Praetor's Grasp you're able to like actually cast the card yourself, I believe. And like once again, it's exiled, so you can't really recur this. It is pretty cheap though. 2 mana, but then it takes 2 mana to activate it. You can do it instantly because artifacts don't have summoning sickness. But overall, it might be like a meta call thing. Like if you're being just destroyed by nothing but like Thassa Oracle or something like that, use this, get that Thassa's Oracle, and yeah, see you later. Moving on to number 9 on our list, we have Slackstone Refinery. It's a 4 mana artifact. Whenever Slackstone Refinery or another non-token artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield or is exiled from the battlefield, interesting, create a tap Power Stone token. So, this would be really good in those like recursion decks. The first card that comes to mind to me is probably Tashar, because like Tashar likes to do those kinds of things where it's like you're like constantly like sacking artifacts to get value, and you're just like playing spells to recur them back. You get these tap Power Stones, which can then like help you ramp into like more stuff. And like it's funny because we brought up strategies like this multiple times throughout the set review, where it's like You got your like Goblin Welder, Goblin Engineer, trash for treasure stuff. You're like sacking artifacts. You're trying to like reanimate big stuff to the battlefield. But also too, or it's put into exile from the battlefield. I honestly don't know how often that would come up. If there's a deck probably like exiling artifacts from the battlefield, maybe this might be able to work for you. And those power stones, even though we're not really high on power stones, they have utility for activated abilities. Obviously, casting artifact spells. You can sack them to stuff like KCI. There are definitely utility in power stones. In the right deck, it's going to make a lot of value, and if you can be able to utilize those power stone tokens to get some maximum value, then you're going to be in really good shape with this card. So moving on to a card that I'm for sure going to be trying in my card deck is going to be at our number 8 spot, Smelter Vet. It's a 4-mana artifact. Pay 1, tap, sacrifice another artifact, reveal the top 8 cards of your library, put up to 2 non-creature artifact cards with total mana value less than or equal to the sacrifice artifact's mana value from among them onto the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So for one, you're looking at the top 8 cards. That's a lot, right? That's if you're playing an artifact deck and sometimes you're probably not going to be getting like the really spicy ones where you're doing like, I don't know, like a Spine of Ishsaw, for example, would be really good for this because Spine comes back to your hand. But even if you did like a 4-mana artifact, you can find a 4-mana artifact, you can find 2 2-mana artifacts, you can find a 3 and a 1. Like, you're able to look through a lot of your deck, and it is like a sack outlet. So you can sacrifice an artifact that maybe has some abilities that happen when artifacts go to the graveyard. But overall, for the card advantage piece of this, so I like this, and maybe like obviously like colorless, but like mono red, maybe even like a black red card. Like I can see this being played in that extra that has unearth for all other artifacts. That seems like a pretty decent deck for this. A lot of really for it being an artifact set, they're really printing off some really cool artifacts, and giving those decks that might struggle with card advantage a way to be able to get some better card advantage. And also it fits within strategies like this, because like in red or like red black, like you're looking part of its identity is like sacrifice. Those things those things are already there. So really interesting card, and I'm hoping that this would work out in my deck, and it might not, who knows, but yeah. Moving on to number 7 on our list, this is a real beater right here. It is Cityscape Leveler, an 8-mana artifact creature construct, 8/8 with trample. Whenever you cast this spell, and whenever Cityscape Leveler attacks, destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent. Its controller creates a tap Power Stone token, and it has Unearth for 8. So right off the bat, in decks that struggle with destroying non-land permanents, I like how it says non-land, because sometimes effects like this, like you're destroying, you're not really destroying like any non-land. It's like one card type, like creature or whatever like that. But in this case, I mean, for 8 mana, I'm glad it does say non-land, and like the Power Stone, and like sometimes you gotta give to take, and in this case, we'll destroy one of your best non-land permanents, and you can have a Power Stone token. It does have Unearth, which I believe gives it haste, so you can do this right off the bat to destroy something. It's also in colorless, and this is something that I like about it. You can play this in basically any deck, and you're probably looking to play this in a deck that can like cheat this out. You can be able to reduce its cost, because it is 8 mana, but if you can give this haste, man, like you cast this, you destroy something, has haste, you do it again. Like it's pretty good, and it's in colorless. I'm really glad that they put this in colorless, and you know, it gives you more value from the graveyard. So really cool card. Coming in at number 6 on our list, we have Staff of Titania. It's a 2-mana artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +X/+X, where X is the number of force you control. Whenever equipped creature attacks, create a 1/1 green forest dryad land creature token. So what I like about this card a lot, especially with the print of that card, Awaken the Woods in green, is that you're making dryad arbors, and like, you know, it's a creature, it's a forest, and you know, you're just getting the extra value from you know, from those tokens. And you know, it's not really a bad rate. I mean, 2 mana, equip 3. You know, it is a pretty good equipment. And like, you know, when it attacks, you basically ramp. You get a creature token, and the equipped creature gets bigger. So it's really interesting. So really, you're just getting a lot of value from this card, and I think that it's definitely worth bringing up, considering that you know, you're just making a dryad arbor every time it attacks, and your creature gets bigger. So a lot of things are happening when you attack. So it's a very, very cool card. Moving on to our number 5 spot on this list, we have Symmetry Matrix. It's a 4-mana artifact. Whenever a creature with power equal to its toughness enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1 mana, one colorless. If you do, draw a card. You know, this is just screaming, you know, token strategy, because you know, normally, well, I mean, most of the time, if you're dedicated to making them like mass tokens, they all come in as like 1/1s, and even if they are getting buffed, you know, if it's like, you know, if you have like a lord that gives them +1/+1, you know, 2/2s, it follows the same, you know, the same rules. Like and it says whenever a creature, like, keep that in mind. If it said non-token creature, that probably would have been different. But man, you're doing this every time a token enters the battlefield under your control. So whatever token strategy you have, this card is just going to be an all-star. I think it's appropriately costed. Like, it would have been kind of weird if it was maybe like 5 or 6 mana, but 4 seems pretty good. So maybe in like a token deck that might, well, actually, this is probably just like a staple in like most token decks anyways. Very, very cool card. It's just very, very good. A lot of raw power in this one. So moving on to our number 4 spot on this list, and I think that this might be my favorite colorless card in this whole set. It is Wondrous Crucible. It's a 7-mana artifact. Permanents you control have Ward 2. At the beginning of your end step, mill 2 cards, then exile a non-land card at random from your graveyard. Copy it. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. I've been waiting for a card that gave some kind of like shroud, hexproof, something, anything, you know, in colorless, and this is the answer that I got. But it's also got the other ability underneath it, which is also just, it's just so good. You mill 2 cards, you exile a non-land card, and then you cast it without paying its mana cost. Ah man, it's just it's definitely one of my favorite cards from the set for sure. It's very, you know, yeah, it's 7 mana, but you know what? In the decks that can be able to like get this out quick, it's not really card selection, but if you can cast something big from your graveyard without paying its mana cost, and your permanents, like even your lands, like which doesn't really come up all that often, but it's just the added thing to it. Everything costs 2 more to target your stuff. So I'm a big fan of this card, and I cannot wait to try it out in my card deck whenever I do get it. Coming in at our number 3 spot on this list, it is one of the most talked about artifacts of the set. It is the Might and the Weak Stone. 5 mana legendary artifact Power Stone. Whenever the Might and the Weak Stone enters the battlefield, choose 1, draw 2 cards. Target creature gets -5/-5 until the end of turn. Tap it to add 2 colorless. This mana can be spent to cast non-artifact spells. Once again, I was trying to find some card that had the versatility that this card has. Killing creatures, drawing cards. It ramps into artifact spells or activated abilities. Like, and 5 mana is not a lot either, man. Like, and especially in the decks that can blink this thing, I can imagine like people playing this in decks. It's actually in the Urza deck that we have for the Brothers War, but like, some funny combos is like Displacer Kitten with this. Like it it's just so, it can be so good. Now, it's not like a crazy good artifact, but in the right decks, this card can just do very, very well. What I like too is that, the creature gets -5/-5. So yeah, you're not really destroying things that are like too big, but it gets around indestructible. If they're 5/5 and under, which can be very, very relevant. That's why stuff like Toxic Deluge is so good, because it gets around those kinds of effects. But yeah, this card is really good for those like lower color artifact decks and in decks that can really abuse the decks that can like flicker and like blink and stuff like that. And it's got the meld. It's part of the meld. We can't forget about that. This melds with Urza Lord Protector to make Urza Planeswalker, and it's just it just gets very good. So a very, very interesting and cool card that they printed in this set, the Might and the Weak Stone. Moving on to our number 2 spot on this list, we have Liberator, Urza's Battlethopter. It's a 3-mana legendary artifact creature Thopter. 1/2, flash and flying. You may cast colorless spells and artifact spells as though they had flash. Whenever you cast a spell, if the amount of mana spent to cast that spell is greater than Liberator Urza's Battlethopter's power, put a +1/+1 counter on Liberator. Basically, it's another Shimmer Mirror, but it's a lot better because you get to cast colorless spells. And it's a legend. You might, some people might be looking to make a deck with this at the helm. You know what I mean? I mean, we never know. I mean, I haven't really looked into it very much, but being able to cast colorless spells, it's primarily artifacts, but there are colorless spells. But this lets me be able to do both of them at instant speed. But if you happen to like that, you got another duplicate. But overall, this card is pretty cool, very flavorful, and yeah, that's why we have it at our number 2 spot. And coming in at our number 1 spot today, we have Portal to Phyrexia. This card is really spicy. 9 mana artifact. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices 3 creatures. At the beginning of your upkeep, put target creature from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It's a Phyrexian in addition to its other types. Now, I know what you're thinking. 9 mana is a lot. But in the right decks, you're trying to reanimate this thing. Like, let's say, let's say you have a way to reanimate this, this artifact. And, I mean, you're wiping the board. And if you can blink this, like, this card can just get out of hand. But also too, you get to reanimate creatures not only from your graveyard, but from everybody's graveyard. It doesn't just have to be yours. That ability might be a little slow. I think that people are going to be more willing to do more of the trying to abuse the first one. And yeah, it's 9 mana. It's a lot. So that's why you're trying to cheat this stuff out. It's obviously not the best spell to cheat out overall, but it is very spicy. It also says each opponent. It's not even you. It's each opponent sacrifices 3 creatures. And 3's kind of weird, but they had to be able to make it that way. Otherwise, it would just be too strong. If it was like more like let's say it was like everyone sacrifices all their creatures or like whatever, like it would just be too much. Even at 9 mana, this gets around hexproof, indestructible, and obviously with the more creatures they have, like if you're playing someone that has like a creature token deck, it might not be that good, but to those like mid-range Voltron, oh my gosh, this card would just destroy them if you can be able to get it out. And with that being said, that's going to be our top 10 colorless cards +1 shout out plus our 1 land in the Brothers War set. We hope that y'all have enjoyed this series. This is going to be the last episode of this series. So yeah, if you haven't checked out the other colors, they're going to be on our YouTube channel for every color plus multicolor. And we hope that we brought to light some of these cards. There's probably some cards in there that were probably like, you know, what are y'all doing? These cards suck, or whatever. You know, let us know. Let us know if there are some cards that we might have missed. And yeah, that's gonna wrap us up for today. We hope y'all have a wonderful day, and we'll see y'all next time.